Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to Newstos. So, a couple of years ago, the ex-boss Phil Spencer kind of alluded to the idea of a bigger company trying to enter the game industry, and this being a threat. And well, it looks like we're actually heading down that path right now, as a couple of big organizations might have a chance right now with a pretty major acquisition, and we already have a front runner and a couple of other candidates that are at least in the running. So we'll talk about that a little later on in the video, and then also some confusion around an Xbox first-party game that may or may not be exclusive. It does seem like there's a little bit of different information going around, and some of this might be because some of it's older information, but we'll talk about that one a little bit later on as well. First, though, a sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order was just officially announced, being Jedi Survivor. Now, some of you all might remember that the name did actually leak out not all that long ago, but it's now official. They did release a teaser trailer and everything. It does kind of highlight its story, though unfortunately, we'll have to wait a little bit longer before we see some official gameplay. But in terms of its story, they did note that Jedi Survivor will be darker in tone compared to the original. The biggest part of this announcement, though, really comes down to what platforms it's coming to. They did reveal that this game is a next-generation exclusive, so it's set to release for the Xbox Series, PlayStation 5, and then PC as well. And this is something that we are starting to see become a little bit more of a common trend. Several games over the last month or two has been going in this direction, leaving the Xbox One and a PlayStation 4 behind. This includes Gotham Knights and Test Drive Solar Crown, which both were originally planned to be cross-generation titles, but actually had to cancel the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 version, which is kind of a sign that we are starting to see these older consoles are just not capable of keeping up with the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5. And now here we're seeing yet another next-generation exclusive being, of course, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Again, though, and I've said this before, I do expect this trend to pick up even further over the next 12 months or so. I think we're really starting to get out of that transition phase where developers are trying to support last-generation consoles. But as we are starting to see here, more developers are truly committing to the Xbox Series and the PlayStation 5, and this is when we'll start to see some of these games really take full advantage of the power of these consoles, whether that be with their solid-state drives or even features like ray tracing, as an example. Either way, though, Jedi Fallen Order, which is debatably one of the best Star Wars games ever made, is getting a sequel, and it's also being planned to release sometime next year in 2023. Next up, we do have that PlayStation State of Play taking place later this week on June 2nd, and it looks like a couple of games that could potentially be here at this event might have already leaked out online. Now, the thing about this particular event is that one of the primary focuses will be on PlayStation VR 2. So with this being the first real introduction to some of PlayStation VR 2's upcoming games, they're going to want to announce some big games here. That way they can kind of build up some hype for it as we head into its official release. And based off of what we're hearing currently, that's exactly what's going to happen. On one side, according to What If Gaming's Ralph Valve, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 is incorporating a virtual reality mode built exclusively for PlayStation VR 2. Apparently, it will have players controlling a Tier 1 operator in a standalone game mode. Not much else is exactly known about this game mode, but considering the popularity of Call of Duty, this could actually be a big announcement for PSVR 2. Virtual reality is still a bit of a niche product, and it needs killer apps that will sell a device like this, and this will certainly go a long way in doing just that. And this is an inclusion with yet another rumor going around right now that Sony is working on a Killzone virtual reality game as well. This one's coming from PSVR Without Parole, and according to their sources, Supermassive Games was originally working on a Killzone title for PlayStation VR, though apparently Sony wasn't exactly happy with its progress, and eventually they took over development themselves. And it's believed that they might have actually transitioned that game into PSVR 2. Now again, considering that PlayStation State of Play later this week will be focusing on third-party games, and then PSVR 2, both of these games could potentially be announced as early as this week if either are true. Now, considering the popularity of both of these franchises, this would certainly be a big win for PSVR 2 surely, so it might be something to keep an eye out for later this week. Let's go and talk about this big acquisition, though, and this is something that we touched up on last week as well, and that is that EA is reportedly looking to sell Apparently, they've been looking to sell for quite a while now, well before the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition, in fact. Though from what we're hearing, EA is actually seeking a merger where Wilson will remain in control of the combined companies. Now, if that part's true, I feel like that's probably why we haven't seen anybody kind of make a move on them as of yet, but that might be changing sometime here soon based off of a new report. A new report that just made its way online is now claiming that 3 big corporations are currently in talks with EA, including Amazon, Disney, and apparently the frontrunner of the 3 being none other than Apple. Yeah, so there you have it. This is something that Phil Spencer actually alluded to a couple of years ago, that some of these big corporations are seeking to enter the hardcore game market and could actually be a threat. And well, it looks like he was right after all, and this here is their big opportunity. Obviously, EA being a massive third-party publisher with various beloved IPs such as Mass Effect, you have Dragon Age, Dead Space, Mirror's Edge, and the list really, it just goes on and on. This is a great opportunity for somebody to just kind of come in and make an immediate impact on the hardcore gaming market. And I think that this might be something that gamers will be concerned about because while EA isn't necessarily the most beloved publisher in the world, they definitely have a reputation, that's for sure. But we don't really know what intentions these big corporations have for a big third-party publisher like EA. You take Apple as an example, which currently is the frontrunner according to this report. One thing that they're known for is having a very closed-off ecosystem. Would they come in and try to make EA games exclusive to their own devices, or instead would they just try to leverage their IP for things such as Apple Arcade? We just don't currently know what their intentions are, and that right there is the issue. They just don't have that trust from the community, and one thing that we have seen over the years is that we've seen publishers try to take advantage of the community in various ways, and big corporations, it almost seems like they don't really completely understand a community like this. So yeah, there's definitely a concern there. You can say what you want when it comes to Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft, but they absolutely have built up a relationship with gamers throughout the years. So we'll kind of see how all this plays out, but out of all the 3 that are apparently in talks with EA, if I were to make a prediction, I don't really see Disney acquiring them. They seem much more content with just licensing out their IP. They've done that with Spider-Man. They're doing that with X-Men. They've also licensed out games like Avatar. They licensed Pirates of the Caribbean over to Rare and Microsoft. And they've been having a lot of success by doing this. So I don't know if they would just go out and acquire a company like EA that's going to be very, very expensive. So I just can't imagine Disney acquiring them. But then you also have Amazon. Now, this is a company that has actually been having some success with hardcore game releases as of recent, and they haven't just been keeping their games exclusive to Amazon. They've also been releasing them on Steam, as an example. They have been having success with this. They also have Luna. So Amazon, I feel like this one actually does kind of make sense. But then there's Apple. Now, that's the one that kind of scares me the most, just because, again, they have a tendency of having more of a closed-off ecosystem. I do question what their intentions would be. That, I think, could be a little bit more concerning. Are they looking to build their own console, or are they just looking to leverage Apple Arcade? I really have no idea what their intentions would be by acquiring a company like EA. It's really hard to tell, but nonetheless, let me know what you all think about all of this in the comments below. Is any of this concerning to you? And if one of these 3 were to acquire or merge with EA, who would you prefer? Let me know in the comments below. Now, speaking of Disney a moment ago, one of their licensed games being Indiana Jones has been surrounded by one major question, and that is whether or not it'll be exclusive to Xbox or not. The thing about this particular game is that it's being developed by Machine Games, a Bethesda-based studio, but after the contract was signed to actually work on this game, well, as we all know, Xbox, of course, acquired Bethesda. So there has been this big question on whether or not Indiana Jones will be exclusive to Xbox or not. On one side, we know for a fact that Disney, they're not exactly worried about console exclusivity. X-Men and Spider-Man, as an example, those are PlayStation exclusives. Then you have the Pirates of the Caribbean Sea of Thieves expansion. So again, that's an exclusive Xbox game. So as you can kind of see here, it does seem like Disney, they're not necessarily afraid of making their games exclusive. But this is the important part. Bethesda and Machine Games signed a contract to make Indiana Jones before the Xbox acquisition was actually completed. So because the timeline of when everything happened, that's where the question really starts to come in. But well, we're now hearing some very different things from some well-respected insiders being Jez Corden and then Nick Baker. So how all this started out was when Jez Corden responded to a tweet claiming that he had confirmed Indiana Jones was not going to be an Xbox exclusive, and he responded by saying, "Last year I heard and plans may have changed, but I don't expect they have." So based off of this tweet, it doesn't sound like Jez is necessarily overly confident that Indiana Jones will be an Xbox exclusive. But he did emphasize that his information is based from a year ago, and this is where things starts to get really interesting because Nick Baker, which also has a pretty decent reputation leaking information, responded as well, stating, "Last I was told, it was exclusive." So he's saying the complete opposite, and this is when Jez once again chimed in by saying that his own information was old, so he himself, being Jez Corden, could be wrong. So it does sound like at the very least, at one point in time, Indiana Jones was originally being planned as a multi-platform game. But if what Nick Baker heard was true, that might have actually changed. Now, personally, I would kind of take this information with a huge grain of salt because, truthfully, I could see this going either which way. But what I will say is that this would be huge for Xbox. I mean, Indiana Jones is obviously a very popular franchise, but on top of that, it also has a lot of potential to be an actual great game. Now, we've seen games like Uncharted and Tomb Raider, which takes a lot of inspiration from something like Indiana Jones. Those are absolutely fantastic games, and Indiana Jones, if done right, could really fit into that mold as well. So again, this could be big for Xbox with them basically kind of having their own Uncharted here, their own Tomb Raider. Again, though, I would still take all this as nothing more than just a rumor for the time being, but I thought we would at least kind of go over it today because I had seen several outlets really only report on what Jez Corden had said, and these outlets were basically saying that Indiana Jones was confirmed to be a multi-platform game, and that really just wasn't the full entire story. So now that you kind of heard both sides, you've heard Jez Corden, you've heard Nick Baker as well, you can kind of be caught up on this entire situation. There's still not necessarily a confirmation one way or the other, but it definitely at the very least seems like it's possible that it could end up being exclusive. Let me know what you all think about this though. Do you think Indiana Jones will end up being an Xbox exclusive or not? Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, and as we head into the month of June, there's going to be a lot of excitement for all of these different big showcases, whether that be with PlayStation, Xbox, just the Summer Game Fest in general, hopefully Nintendo. But nonetheless, I still wanted to know, what upcoming game releasing in June are you most excited for? And as you can see here, Mario Strikers Battle League took the #1 spot at 33%. Then The Quarry was at #2 with 22%. 21% of you all actually voted for other. I'll kind of get to that here in just a moment, and then 12% apiece being Fire Emblem Warriors, Three Hopes, and then Capcom Fighting Collection. Now, in terms of other, I did see some comments for the AI Somnium Files sequel. That one is actually quite interesting. Also, several of you all did talk about Shadowrun. I saw Cuphead: The Last Delicious Course. That is definitely some very highly anticipated DLC. Then also the highly anticipated expansion for Monster Hunter Rise being Sunbreak. I did see several votes for that one as well. But there you have it. Even though June doesn't necessarily have that big blockbuster title, there does seem to be a lot of variety here, and definitely some games to look forward to, whether that be with expansions or just completely new releases such as The Quarry and Mario Strikers. And actually, to see Mario Strikers come out on top here, I think that is really good to see. I remember these Mario sports games being a lot of fun back on the GameCube, so I'm really happy to see them kind of make a bit of a return as of recent on the Nintendo Switch. I mean, we've kind of seen it time and time again. That Switch effect is a very, very real thing. So I'm hoping that Mario Strikers Battle League has a lot of success here, and I can kind of say the same thing with The Quarry. A lot of you all did vote for this game as well, and that was really nice to see. This is a horror game coming from Supermassive Games, and based off of what we've seen, it really seems like it's cut from the same cloth as Until Dawn, another game that they've developed. I mean, you're seeing a lot of similarities here. So yeah, I'm hoping both of these games get a lot of recognition this month, and I think that it's actually perfect timing because you don't really have those big blockbuster releases for the month of June. So hopefully both these games get a lot of recognition throughout the month. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.